Uno, dos, tres. Uno, dos, tres.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us at this academic conference. We are delighted to welcome Mónica León. Thank you. Who will share her insights on the shift from communicative language teaching to an action-oriented approach. We are glad you are here. Thank you.
Thank you to our coordinator for those words and for welcoming our speaker for tonight. Today's conference, it's a very important topic for us, for those who are teaching already and for those who would like to join this outstanding field. Today's conference is entitled From Communicative Language Teaching to an Action-Oriented Approach. Mrs. De Leon, Mónica, has a lot of experience in the teaching field. She is an expert on this topic. So she holds master's degrees in business administration, as well as applied linguistics with TESOL and human resources as well. She's the language director of QLU University, and we're welcome and happy to have her with us tonight. So having this, I would say, partnership with different universities. So from her experience and expertise, her wisdom and insights tonight, she will help us understand a bit more about this topic. Without any further ado, please welcome Ms. Mónica De León.
Well, I'm going to use this microphone because I am a teacher and I absolutely and completely hate sitting behind a podium. So I'll just move around. Thank you for having me here. I think that I was really, really excited with when Doris called me and invited me here. I think collaboration, it's one of the skills to be developed in this century. So thank you for that. I am going to be sharing with you some important topic that it's going from communicative language teaching, which is what we are used to teach right now, to a more action-oriented approach. Before I start going deep down into the action-oriented approach, I'm going to tell you a little bit about some frameworks and some English levels. So I've been told that I have students who are studying the técnico and the licenciatura here, right? Yes? So you're going to be the future teachers of Panama here. That's amazing. So before I start, please give everyone a big applause, because as future teachers, you have a great responsibility on your shoulders. And teachers, we are an inspiration. We do this job because we really believe that we can change people's lives. So thank you for coming. Thank you for coming at 7 to hear me do my presentation here. So as we start, I'm going to give you some instructions. So if you are old millennials like me, you can take out your piece of paper and a pencil. And if you are Gen Z, Gen X, or any other generation, you can take out your phones, because you're going to write something down, okay? So take a piece of paper or your phones, because I really need you to write something down and to show it to me later. Okay, so I'm going to show you 2 different videos. And I don't know how many English levels do we have here in ISAE, But let's just pretend that we have an English course, and in this English course, we have 10 different levels of English, okay? Ranging from beginner to advanced students, okay? So I will say it again. We're going to watch a video, and we're going to pretend that we're going to be evaluating 2 students. We have 10 different levels, and you have to grade them. In those 10 different levels, being level 1 beginner and level 10 advanced, you're going to write the number of the level you think that student should be placed. So this is going to be like a placement test that we're going to be doing, okay? You're going to write the number from 1 to 10 where you think the student fits best, okay? So it was Mario, right? Mario is going to be helping us throughout the presentation, and he has the next video for us here.
For tomorrow, and just here.
Yeah, can you pause it a little bit? Okay, so we're going to have our first student, the first student that we're going to be evaluating, okay? Pay attention to the questions and how she's going to answer them. We're going to take like 1 minute, and then you have to decide. This is a placement test. You have to decide in which level from 1 to 10 this student should be placed, okay? Mario, we're ready for you. Yes.
For tomorrow, and just here. And before I have English in my college, but I think it's unreal. It's very far away from me. And I want to work with English and for business, for no other person in the world and travel. I'm enjoying speak with my classmates. Can I know other person and have communication with him? Oh, so, and now I can understand the music. Can I understand the other culture?
Okay, thank you, Mario. So that was our first student. In the next video, now you need to have a number, okay? Do you have a number of the level that you place that student from 1 to 10? Yes, okay. Now we're going to watch the next student. You can continue, just click next or play. Oh, no, sorry. Yeah. This is our next student.
I want to go to the university, so I enjoy having conversation with my friends from abroad. My challenge is I cannot say R, so some pronunciation with talk.
Okay, thank you very much. Now we're going to go to the end, to the last person. So it was a male. If you scroll, yeah, right there. Okay, this is our third student, okay? So do we have a level for the first and second students? Okay, this is our third student. Ready? Okay, go ahead. I know.
Can I understand?
Studying English for a long time. the time spent studying English on my own takes around 10 years, but then I spent around 2 years studying English in England and Canada. So studying English in order to get higher degrees. After I finished my undergrad, I thought I'm taking my postgrad degree. So I studied English to get my master's, and now I'm in the process of learning English to my PhD in the future. What I enjoy about learning English is that it enables me to communicate with more people, since English has become one of the most spoken languages in the world. And I like to communicate with more people here and there from different countries, especially those who can speak English. For someone like me who speaks a language that is different from another Latin language, learning English is quite challenging. And what I find challenging is sometimes pronunciations of some words and some sentences, especially in these situations.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Mario. Okay, so just pop. Oh yeah, we don't want to go there. Okay, here. We just saw a video for 3 different students. So right now, I am going to ask you in like small groups of 3, 4, right where you are, to compare notes to see if you have the same levels, okay? So make just some groups. I'll give you 2 minutes to discuss and compare your notes, okay? Are you Okay, that's fantastic. Now I'm going to ask here. Can you give me the order of the levels?
The first level is 2. The first, yes, number 2. The second student, I think, is the 2 levels.
Okay.
And the third student is the 9 level.
9 level. Do you have anything exactly the same? Who has the same levels here? Can you raise your hands? 2, 2, and 9. Did anyone here? Okay, let's ask you here. What levels do you have? First student?
1.
1. Second student?
And second student, 3.
3. And the last one?
10.
10. So we have, do you say 1, 3, 10? Does anyone have the same numbers as she? We have two people here, okay? Let's see someone here. You, first student.
And 3.
Level 3. Second?
Second one is 2.
2. And the third one?
And the last one is 9.
So we have remember me? 3, 2, and 9. Do you have the same exact numbers as he does? Okay. Do you know how difficult this exercise was? I ask you to just in 1 to 10 rate the students and give them a level. And here we are in Panama. We share the same culture, we share the same values, and probably we come from the same background. Can you imagine if we were to ask the same question to a teacher that comes from China, for example? How different will their answers be? Or a teacher who is a native speaker, who, I don't know, lives in the UK. So, you know how like our perspectives about English language teaching and proficiency and vocabulary and everything really, really change? Well, this is a problem. And this was a problem that was actually thought about years ago. And there's a solution for it. So here, Why is it a problem? First, we have very subjective classifications, okay? So it's what we did right now was very subjective. It was like more of what I think students level was or where, you know. Skills variability. We were only evaluating their oral skills. We didn't actually see that if they could write in English, for example. Okay, I see that a lot of people are recording and taking pictures of their presentation. So before I continue, disclaimer, this is being recorded and Mario has the link for the YouTube and he's going to share it at the end. And right now here, I have the QR code as well. If you want to scan that and have it in your phones right now, you can do it so you don't miss time taking pictures, or I still have it in all the slides. So you'll get access to it, okay? Don't worry about it. So we go back to here. Then we have skills variability. We only heard students for a very short period of time. We didn't actually see them write or mediate or kind of like do a listening activity. So, you know, again, a lot of subjectivity. Then we have global standardization. Do we have something that we established before here? Like, what are going to be our standards? What it's like the scale on how we're going to evaluate the students? We didn't have one, right? And if you saw everyone that I asked, you have very different results. And was it reliable? Do you think that the information that I gave you was like enough or reliable? It was not, right? So there was a need for a standardized framework, and the solution for the problem here, it's the Common European Framework of Reference. This is very important for my presentation, so do not be afraid if you have not heard about it. But can you raise your hands if you have heard before about the Common European Framework or the CEFR or the CEFR? Yeah, I hope that you you have better. You better. Yeah. Okay. So if you have not heard about it, you have a lot of homework to do because this is really important. Now, just remember about the problem that I just gave you. How do we actually know the level of proficiency of the students? I bet that when you came here to ISAE, you took a placement test and they gave you like a level. Here, can you imagine doing these like in the entire world? So we have something that's very standardized, and that's called the Common European Framework of Reference. And the Common European Framework of Reference will give us a structured way to describe what learners can do at each level. So the Common European Framework will tell you exactly what a student can and will be able to do at a specific period in their learning process and at a specific level. So having this standardization will give you an idea of your students. So if you're going to become teachers, or if you are already teachers, before you start teaching English, you will need to know where your students are at, so you can help them progress in their journey in English. So here, since this is a foreign concept for most of you, which makes me really excited that I am the one sharing this for the very first time, the CEFR was born in Europe. But because it was born in Europe, it does not necessarily mean that only European countries use it, okay? And the CEFR does not only give you specifically what students should be able to do or can do with the language or certain levels in English, but I think in more than 20 different languages. So it's not just about English, but it's standardized. Does anyone have an English book here? Cambridge, Pearson, any English book? Well, whenever you go home and find your old books when you start studying English, if you flip them, they will Every single book will have small square that says CFR, and they will give you the reference of the levels. Because even though this is a framework that was born in Europe, we use it for everything. We use it for the TOEFL test. We use it for books. We actually use it for kind of like evaluating students. So here, it's research backed. It's not something that they came up with, and they continue doing this research. So the Common European Framework, it's something that's alive. It's always been researched for and to make improvements. It will focus on what learners can do. So you will have standards. You will have very clear things of what students in each level should be able to do. It's divided into 6 levels. We have A1 up to C2. Have you heard about these terms before? So it's A1, A2, B1, B2, C1, C2. And we have pre-A1. So a pre-A1 student is a student who has not heard about English. So someone who's starting as a beginner can be an A1 student. And a native speaker is a C2 student. So for example, I am a C2 in Spanish because that's my native language. But I am not there yet in a C2 level for English, okay? So that's how they divide the levels. They go from very basic to a very proficient level, a native speaker wise. And it's used internationally. And this is very important because, as I told you, even though this was born in Europe, I think probably all the countries or most countries use it. Even you have used the CFR if you've taken TOEFL test, or if you've learned English and you flip your book, you'll see that you have that reference there. So I have 2 pictures here, and we're going to do another discussion in your small groups. I have one group of animals here, and then I have a second group of animals here. And first, I want you to find what this group of animals they have in common, and the second is what these group of animals, what they have in common, okay? So let's have a 30-second discussion in your groups, and you need to tell me one characteristic, okay? One adjective. Come up with one adjective that describes the first group and the second group. Cute is not part of the adjective that I'm looking for, okay? So let's discuss. Let's discuss in your small groups. Okay, very good. So in the first group, I have a cheetah, a falcon, and a sailfish. One adjective to describe them. What do you say? Fast. Yes, that's the adjective that I was looking for. And in the contrary, these very cute animals that we have here, slow, okay? So we have fast and slow animals. As we have fast and slow animals, we will also have fast and slow learners, okay? And that is completely fine. And that is completely okay. We all learn at a different pace. Some of us are very good with languages. Some of us are not very good with languages. That will take a little bit of extra effort. And just remember, it's completely fine. But we do have 2 different types of learners. We have fast learners and we have slow learners. The fast learners are going to learn a little bit faster, quicker. They are going to excel. But the slow learners, we will actually need to help them a little bit more. Now, you will ask, like, why is this lady giving us like animals and fast and slow learners? I'm telling you this because there is a huge relationship on the amount of hours of instruction that we need, the amount of hours of contact with the language that we need in order to improve from one level to the next level. Okay, so it's not the same. It's not, we do not need the same amount of hours, and this is research backed. And I gave you the link here if you want to learn more about it. So it's not the same as going from beginners to an intermediate level as to going to an intermediate level to an advanced level. Okay, so if you see here, when we start studying English, and this study was done by Pearson, so the link is right there if you want to continue, exploring it. We will need around 480 for slow learners and 95 for the fast learners to actually go from a pre-A1, remember the ones who actually are like 0, to starting like on the language, to start on their A1. When they progress from A1 to A2, a slow learner will need 770 hours or 120. And then as we continue, you see that the hours increase, okay? So as we progress in English, we need more encounters. We need to study more in English as well. So you will say, and this is something very common, like, I have been studying English for a lot of years, but I don't see any progress. There's research behind it, okay? Because we need a lot of hours to actually learn a language. Doing only Duolingo, for example, which, by the way, is a great tool, is not enough, okay? We need to have those real encounters, real interactions with the language. We need to study to actually progress. And there's a lot of hours involved in going from one level to the next one. Here, there are a lot of factors that will impact how we learn a language, and that goes, for example, what our L1 is, our native language. If our native language structure is completely different as the one we have, like subject-verb agreement, that really impacts the study, motivation as well, the intensity of study, how many times do we practice. So there's a lot of factors that, affect these, but you need to know that we need a lot of hours to actually learn a language, okay? So do not expect your students in just a course to actually, speak English. We need to take them progressively. So the CFR will give you levels, and they will go from A1 up to C2, which we go from beginners to beginner, elementary, intermediate, upper intermediate, advanced, and proficient, okay? And in the Common European Framework, we have specific standards, things that students are going to be able to do at certain levels. We have some examples here. So a beginner, they can introduce themselves and ask simple question. An elementary one, can you read? Someone, help me. Someone who's sleeping. Yeah, go ahead. The second one, elementary. Very good, thank you. What about a B1, an intermediate one? Who wants to read it? Thank you. Okay, perfect. B2, my orange cap guy.
Can express opinions and understand issues.
Very good. C1, advanced. Who wants to read the advanced one? Who needs to wake up? Thank you. Go ahead. Yeah, don't worry. Thank you very much. So we have then the C2, the proficient, can use English almost like a native speaker. So we have all the way from beginner to proficient. And this is the graph that they use. When you see this graph, you don't see levels as steps as we're used to, right? Here we use circles because we recycle English, because we sometimes need to go back and forth in the levels. But A1 is the foundation and we build around it, okay? It's not something that's going to be isolated, but we have to build around it. So what students are learning as A1s, as A1s, when they reach A2s is I can do this plus this. Okay, and that's why it starts kind of building on each level. I also added here, if you want to know more about the CEFR, I only have a very short period of time with you guys, but in my presentation, if you click there, it will take you to the resources if you want, to do your own research as well. So now we're going to go and I'm going to talk a little bit about the action-oriented approach, okay? So we're going to go down memory lane here and I'm going to ask you some questions. So we're going to go down memory lane about how do you learn English, okay? So right now we are just going to remember, how did we learn English, okay? Let's think about it. Did you learn English in school, taking English courses, watching TV? How do you learn English, okay? And I'll give you 1 minute to discuss with your groups. How do you learn English, okay? Let's discuss. Okay, very good. Now I am going to ask you some questions and you have to raise your hands if you learn English this way, okay? Raise your hands if you had to memorize long vocabulary lists without really using the words in a conversation. So in school, did they give you like these long list of vocabulary words that you had to memorize? Raise your hands if you did. Only 2. Yeah, right? Be honest. Okay, so long list of vocabularies to memorize. This is very common. But when we memorize vocabulary without actually putting into context, into action, what happens? Words are quickly forgotten because they're not used in real life. So I remember when I was in school, my teachers will give me a list of 20 vocabulary words, and I will have to go to las revistas and cut the vocabulary words. Did you do that? Like they will make me find a ball or draw a ball. But we didn't practice using like ball. They just gave me vocabulary. That didn't happen to you here? Well, I studied in Guatemala, so probably that's why. Now, raise your hands. Raise your hands if you practice scripted dialogues where you had to follow a set of a conversation with a partner. Thank you. What about this side of the room? Yeah, thank you, right? That you had, like, I am going to be Juana and you be Maria. And it's like, where do you live? I live in Denver, Colorado. Yeah, right? We actually did a lot of scripted. What happens when we do a lot of scripted dialogues? Well, you sound very fluent. If you practice 20 times, you sound that you actually come from Denver, Colorado. If you practice a lot, but in reality, it's just one situation, okay? And when you transform that dialogue to a real conversation, you don't really know what to say, right? Because you only practice that specific dialogue. Now, raise your hands if you spend a lot of time filling in the blanks in grammar exercises that didn't speak much about English in class. Raise your hands if you completed a lot of grammar exercises. Yeah, right? And what about the word banks, where they gave you a word bank and you had to complete it? Who did this? Very common, right? Now, what happens with these? You know the grammar rules, and grammar, believe me, the class that I teach in the linguistics masters is teaching grammar. So I love grammar. I'm really passionate about grammar, and I think grammar is everything. Not everything, but it's very important. But it's not just what we need to learn in English, correct? So here, you know the grammar rules, which are really important, but when you have to speak, when you have to produce, you hesitate or you stay silent. So you know the grammar rules. You know that first comes subject, then we have the verb, and then we have the complement, okay? We know the rules. If I tell you, what is the rule for the third person singular? What do we do? And the verb, we add this. If we do present continuous, what do we do with the verb? Verb be and ing, right? So this is the same for students. If you go to public and private schools and you ask students, what are the verb be's? I promise you, they know the verb be from top to bottom, but they cannot actually use it, okay? So last one, raise your hands if you learn English by translating sentences instead of thinking in English. Yeah, and this one, I put it at the end because this was one of the first methods of teaching English, and it was called the grammar translation method. Have you studied that one in your licenciatura yet? Yeah, and remember the studies that said, this does not work. And there was this guy, I don't even remember the name, of this German guy who you should know it. This German guy who actually translated an entire book, and he was like, I'm going to learn English by translating everything. And then he knew all the vocabulary words, but he couldn't have a conversation because we didn't have that connection, you know? So you depend on your first language, making it harder to think and speak fluently in English. The goal is, and people say, like, when you start dreaming or counting or hoping in English is when you are actually bilingual. Have you heard that phrase? So the goal is to actually, become bilingual and stop using your L1. Stop translating in your head from one language to the other, which at the very beginning is something that we do. Now, and this is how the action-oriented approach comes into place. We have had a development of methods. So we had the grammar translation method, we had the silent method, the audiolingual method. What other methods have you studied in your licenciaturas? And well, there's a lot of methods. The last method that we have that we use is the communicative approach. So this was born in the 90s, 80s, 90s, and it was like, students learn a lot of grammar, but they're not speaking. So these movements started with, we need to focus on communication, and communication is to be everything. But now we use an action-oriented approach. The action-oriented approach comes from the Common European Framework of Reference. That's an approach that they actually suggests. And it's not a methodology. The audiolingual methodology, for example, has steps. Like you first need to listen, then you need to do the dialogues, then you start producing. So when you have a method, you have A, B, and C, D. That's a method, okay? And not just in English, in any other field. But when you have an approach, and that's the difference between a method and an approach, when you have an approach, you can use all the methods and all the techniques that work for you and direct them towards an action, okay? So it's not a formula that will give you 100% success. This approach, what it's telling you is use what works for you and your students, but make it real. Take it to a real context. If you want to know a little bit more, obviously I added the link for homework because I won't have time to talk about it because it's long and I'm really passionate about it, and you can vouch for it that I can stay here and talk about it for like 3 more hours. But let's see here. So instead of what will happen if, okay? So these are the questions that I asked you at the very beginning. What happens if instead of memorizing those long vocabulary words without using them in conversations, an action-oriented approach will tell us you use vocabulary in real tasks. For example, describing objects in a scavenger hunt, okay? Or instead of like telling your students, learn about chair, table, we actually have them do, like a presentation, realia. Do not just ask your students to memorize things, have them do something with those words so they actually make an impact in their lives. Next one, instead of practicing scripted dialogues where you had to follow a conversation with a partner, why don't we engage in real conversations? So instead of having that, what are you from? I'm from Denver, Colorado. We do a class trip, okay? And we plan something together. We do a class trip, or we role play, or we have spontaneous scenarios. I'm not saying scripts are bad, but we can have that script and then take it to the next level and tell the students, this is the script that you practiced. Now create something of your own, okay? Take it to the next level so they can connect with real context. Filling in the blanks in grammar exercises, but not speaking much in English. Why don't you learn grammar naturally by using it in meaningful tasks? So having kind of like a lot of tasks, writing a blog or debating a topic and inserting the grammar there. We still have to give them explicit grammar rules. And there's a lot of research that says that we need to tell students what they're learning. If they are learning the present perfect, we should tell them. But instead of just having them complete exercises, let's have them do something meaningful with it. Translating sentences. You start thinking in English by doing tasks where translation is not needed. For example, solving a real-life problem in groups. So this change takes time. This change in mindset will take time as well. And this is just out from 2018. So it's very recent, 2018, 2020. So this new approach is only been out for 5 years. So, it's something new, but you should start thinking about it because this is what's coming when you become teachers. Now, I want to play this video. How do I do that here? Here? Or you can just play it there. Yeah, you just click like in the center, play. There you are.
Do you know what the CFR is? The Common European Framework of Reference for Languages is a guideline for achievements for language learners. The CEFR is the core document in the Council of Europe's work in language education. Languages are key to participate in society and protect human rights. Its aim is to help with learning, teaching, and assessing languages. Today, we are going to talk about the action-oriented approach, the perspective for language teaching and learning in the CEFR. In this approach, language learners exert agency by acting in real-life situations to achieve goals through collaborative tasks. Key features of an action-oriented task are: action is purposeful and relevant to the task. Learners activate their competences and strategies to achieve an objective. There are conditions and constraints that reflect real-life situations. Learners interact with others to gain meaning. They make their own choices and decisions to accomplish the task. Let's meet 3 language teachers to learn how they put the action-oriented approach into practice.
Yeah, that video is there if you want to keep, Yeah. The next slide.
Hi, my name is Renee, and I teach English.
No, the next, la próxima, Firmina. Yeah, that. Okay, so this is a short summary of the last approach that we have, that was the communicative one, and how it moved to an action-oriented. So we had 4 skills. We had listening and reading that were receptive, and speaking and writing that were productive. And our entire goal was for students to communicate. Even if they were reading scripts, we wanted students to become speakers and hearers of English. That was the goal. Now we're moving more using the same skills, but including interaction and mediation, making learners social agents. Social agents are students who can actually use English for their everyday lives, okay? Students can use English to co-construct meaning together. So collaboration is everything here. We have listening and reading that are not just receptive, but they became productive and interactive. And also, we need to focus on 3 components. And this is the last slide, I promise. We need to focus on the linguistic part. The linguistic part is what we are really passionate about, which is the grammar rules, the vocabulary, phonology, the linguistics aspect. That is important, but also the pragmatic and the social linguistic. How you learn to do. You have your vocabulary list, you have your grammar repertoire. So how are you going to put that into real context? How are you going to use that? And the social linguistic, I put B in there, I need to correct that one. It's actually how what you are learning can impact you. If I'm doing a presentation, I use formal English. But when I'm talking with a friend, I use informal English. So, those types of situations. Now, I left all the links here. There is the link to my presentation. There's my email. There's I work at Quality Leadership University, but I am a board member of Panama TESOL. So these are my 2 seconds of advertisement here. I'll go back here. But if you do not know, Panama TESOL is the Panamanian Association for English Teachers. And they have monthly webinars that are free. You don't have to pay anything. So if you want to kind of improve, the next webinar is on March 28th and it's free. So panamatesol.com. But here is my information. Here's my LinkedIn. Thank you so much, Professora Doris and Isaiah, for having me. I can talk for hours, but Hopefully you learned something new. You have access to the presentation and the links, and if I spark some curiosity there, you can keep learning more. So thank you.
Thank you so much to Mónica León for such an outstanding presentation. What a great performance. You sold it to us when we bought it. Congratulations for that, and you and for your time, for coming to ISAT University. I'm quite sure students have learned a lot today, and we do appreciate your support on this matter as well. So this conference, it's been broadcasted on YouTube. ISAT University. We have a lot of viewers also who joined. They stay tuned for the entire conference, and we hope that this was a very productive evening for you all, and thank you for joining. Before we conclude with this conference, I don't know if Monica has some time for questions, or you're just okay with that. Would you like to ask her some questions, guys, from the audience? Do you have any questions for her? Any comment or questions you would like to bring to the table tonight before we conclude? Please go for it. Would you like to have the mic for you? So, Mario, just go ahead, Mario.
Thank you. I really appreciate to hear you, and I love your pronunciation. It's so nice, and thank you. My question is, when you come back here? And thank you.
Thank you. That's awesome. Well, this is the thing, and I have to recognize this. But the English directors of the university, for example, Professora Doris and I, we always collaborate. And we actually know the English directors of all the universities. And we're always right there collaborating. So anytime that you would like me to be back, for sure, I will be back. Remember, action-oriented approach is everything about collaborating and being social agents. Any other questions? Okay, before you go, let's have a picture. So let's stand here, and Mario can help us with the picture.
Yeah, perfect. Before the picture, we have something for her. So our head of the English department and our Dr. Yuseva would like to recognize the effort of our speaker for tonight. So. What a fantastic night, isn't it? So you guys can come to the front, the stage, so for a group picture. I'll invite you all guys to come to the front for a group picture, please.